The bar was quiet that night. A dim yellow light glowed above the wooden counter, and the smell of old smoke and spilled drinks still hung in the air. John wiped the same glass for the 5th time, even though it was already clean. He was a human, living far away from Earth on a dusty trade station at the edge of the galaxy. His bar was small, hidden between cargo docks and cheap motels. Most nights were the same: tired workers, smugglers, and space pilots coming in for a quick drink before leaving again. Nothing exciting ever happened here, but that night everything changed. The door slid open with a low hiss, and a tall figure entered. Everyone turned their heads for just a second, then quickly looked away. She was not human. Her skin shimmered pale silver under the weak light, and her eyes glowed softly like moons. She wore a long cloak that brushed against the floor as she walked, and her steps were heavy, almost commanding. There was something in her presence that made the air colder, heavier. She looked like a queen trying to hide in the crowd but failing because power followed her like a shadow. John had seen many aliens before, but this one was different. She was older, not weak but wise, with a face that carried both beauty and scars of time. Whispers floated through the bar. "That's a stepmother, a matron of the Elvari race." Some men lowered their eyes. Others shifted uncomfortably. Elvari stepmothers had reputations, strict, proud, and dangerous when crossed. She walked straight to the counter where John stood. For a moment she did not speak. Her eyes scanned the shelves behind him, filled with dusty bottles of human liquor. Then in a voice that was calm but sharp as a blade, she said, "Give me a bottle of your strongest whiskey." John blinked. He had expected her to ask for something exotic, maybe a rare alien brew. But whiskey? Just an earth drink, simple and common. He hesitated. "Are you sure?" John asked carefully. Whiskey burned strong. "Not many." Her eyes narrowed slightly and he stopped speaking. "Yes, whiskey, a full bottle." The way she said it sent a strange shiver down his back. It did not sound like she was just ordering a drink. It sounded like she was making a demand, a ritual. Still, he shrugged and reached for the shelf. He pulled down one of the last bottles he had, amber liquid glowing faintly in the glass. When he placed it on the counter, she stared at it for a long time. Then, with slow, deliberate hands, she took out a small pouch made of dark leather. She untied it and poured bright silver coins on the counter. They didn't look like credits or any currency John had ever seen before. The coins glowed faintly, humming with some strange energy. "This will be enough," she said. John frowned. "Lady, I can't take that." "I only take credits or trade vouchers." But she pushed the coins closer. "This is more than payment. It is bond. It is promise. Whiskey for me, future for you." John had no idea what she meant, but the look in her eyes froze his protest. He slowly nodded and slid the bottle toward her. She picked it up with both hands, almost like she was holding something sacred. She didn't drink, didn't open it. She just gave a small nod of respect, turned, and walked away. The entire bar had gone silent. Not a single person breathed too loud until she was gone. The door hissed shut and then the whispers started again. "You fool," one of the old pilots muttered from a corner. John looked over. "What do you mean?" "You don't even know what you just did." The pilot shook his head, taking a nervous sip from his glass. "Trading whiskey like that with an Elvari stepmother. It's no ordinary deal. It's a ritual." John frowned. "Ritual? It was just a sale." The pilot laughed bitterly. "Not to them. To them, it means you've been chosen." John's stomach tightened. He wanted to ask more, but the old pilot refused to speak again. Others avoided his eyes, as if afraid to be dragged into whatever he had just stepped into. That night, when John finally closed the bar and walked home through the dim corridors of the space station, he could not shake the feeling that something had changed. He replayed her words in his head. "Whiskey for me, future for you." What future? What promise? He laughed nervously at himself. "It's nothing," he whispered, trying to convince his own mind. "Just a weird customer." But deep inside he knew. The way she had looked at him, the weight in her voice, the silence in the room. It was not nothing. Something had begun that night. Something he could not yet understand, and tomorrow the first pieces of that strange future would come knocking at his door. The next morning, John woke up later than usual. His head felt heavy, not from drink, but from thoughts that had followed him all night. He couldn't stop remembering the silver-skinned woman, the way she looked at him, the way she spoke. "Whiskey for me, future for you." The words circled in his mind like a song he couldn't forget. He tried to brush it away as nonsense. Just another strange customer on a space station full of strange creatures. But deep inside, he felt uneasy. By noon, he reopened his bar. The first few customers came in. Dock workers, a couple of pilots, and some traders. Normal. But then he noticed something strange. People kept staring at him. Not openly, but with quick side glances. Some even whispered when he passed their table. Finally, John confronted one of the regulars, a miner named Kerr. "What's going on? Why is everyone looking at me like I grew a second head?" Kerr leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Word travels fast here, John. They say you sold whiskey to her." John frowned. "So what? It was just a bottle." Kerr's eyes widened. "Not to them, it wasn't. You don't understand their customs. Selling whiskey like that, it's a ritual." "A sacred bond," John laughed nervously. "Sacred bond? Come on, it's just alcohol." But Kerr didn't laugh. "No, John. To the Elvari, sharing a bottle isn't about drinking. It's about choosing. It's a ceremony of union, of family. If she accepted whiskey from you, then she's bound you to her house." The words hit John like a hammer. Bound, union, family. That couldn't be true. Could it? He shook his head. "That's insane. She didn't even open the bottle." "Exactly," Kerr whispered. "That means the bond is sealed. The whiskey is not for her lips. It's a symbol." Before John could reply, the bar door slid open again. A hush fell over the room. Everyone turned. 3 figures stepped inside. They were younger, their silver skin glowing faintly like polished metal under the lights. They moved with grace, their long cloaks flowing behind them. Each of them carried an air of pride, but also curiosity. And they all looked directly at John. The first one spoke, her voice calm but commanding. "You are John, the human bartender." John nodded slowly, his throat dry. "Yeah, that's me." The second one stepped closer, studying him with eyes that seemed too sharp. "Our mother made trade with you. She carried home a bottle of whiskey from your hands." John swallowed hard. "She bought a drink." "That's all." The third daughter tilted her head, almost smiling. "No, that was not just a purchase. It was acceptance. You are now part of her bond. And by her bond, you are also ours." The room went silent. Every ear leaned closer, pretending not to listen, but hanging on each word. John's voice cracked. "Yours, what do you mean?" "Yours?" The eldest daughter's eyes softened, but her tone was firm. "In our culture, when a stepmother binds herself to a man, her daughters are bound as well. We are hers, and now we are yours." John felt his knees weaken. He grabbed the counter for balance. He wanted to argue, wanted to tell them it was a mistake, but the way they stood before him, serious, regal, unshaken, it was clear they truly believed it. "Look," John said, forcing a weak laugh. "I think there's been a misunderstanding. I didn't agree to anything. I just sold a bottle of whiskey. That's it." But the daughters didn't move. The second one's eyes narrowed. "You cannot undo a bond once it is sealed."
"Deny it, and you insult our mother."
"Insult her, and you insult us. And insult to our house is insult to our honor," John's heart pounded. Around the bar, whispers grew louder. Some people smirked, others shook their heads with pity. A few looked scared for him. Everyone knew what an Elvari insult meant. It could end in blood. The youngest daughter suddenly stepped forward. Unlike the others, she had a curious, almost playful expression. She leaned closer and whispered, "Don't worry, human. You'll learn. You'll see. It's not a curse." Then louder so everyone could hear, she said, "From today you are husband to us." Gasps filled the bar. Someone dropped a glass and it shattered on the floor. John froze. His world had just turned upside down. Yesterday he was just a bartender, selling cheap drinks to travelers. Today he was being claimed as a husband by 3 alien daughters he had never met before. The daughters turned gracefully, walking toward the door. But before leaving, the eldest looked back and spoke once more. "Prepare yourself, John. Tonight we return, and you will not be alone." Then they were gone, leaving silence behind. Everyone in the bar stared at John. Some looked jealous, others fearful. John's hands trembled as he poured himself a glass of the very whiskey that had caused all this. He downed it in one shot, the burn running down his throat like fire. "What the hell?" he muttered to himself. "What have I gotten into?" And deep down he knew the answer. Something far bigger than a simple sale. Something that would change his life forever. The rest of the day felt endless. John tried to keep busy behind the bar, but his hands shook every time he poured a drink. He could feel the weight of curious eyes on him. People whispered in corners, trading rumors about what would happen when the Elvari daughters returned. Some laughed, saying John had signed his life away. Others shook their heads, muttering that humans didn't survive long in Elvari households. John tried to ignore it all. It's just a mistake, he told himself again and again. They'll forget about it tomorrow. But night came quickly, and with it silence. The bar was empty earlier than usual, customers leaving one by one as if they didn't want to be caught there when it happened. Soon John was alone, cleaning glasses that didn't need cleaning, listening to the hum of the lights above. Then, the door slid open. They had come back. The three daughters entered together, their silver cloaks glowing faintly in the dim light. They moved like a single shadow, graceful and quiet, but each one carried a different aura that filled the room with tension. The eldest daughter stepped forward first. She was tall, her face calm but stern, her eyes sharp like blades. Her presence alone made John straighten his back, as if she were silently commanding respect. She spoke in a clear, steady voice. "Human John, we are here as promised. Tonight the bond begins." John's throat went dry. He forced a smile, hoping to lighten the mood. "Look, I think maybe your mother made a mistake. I'm not really the husband type." The second daughter moved next. She was shorter, her gaze fierce, her movements quick. She slammed her hand on the counter, making the bottles rattle. "Do not joke about this. You are bound. To refuse is insult. To insult is to invite punishment. Do you wish for that?" John flinched at her intensity, but before he could reply, the youngest daughter stepped closer. Unlike her sisters, she had a softness about her, a curious sparkle in her eyes. She smiled gently, tilting her head as if studying him like a puzzle. "Don't be afraid," she said softly. "We don't bite much." John let out a nervous laugh, though it didn't calm his racing heart. "So what exactly do you want from me?" The eldest answered without hesitation. "We want nothing. You are already chosen. Our mother saw strength in you. She gave you the whiskey and you accepted. That sealed it. From now on, you are protector, provider, and husband to this house." John's head spun. Protector? Provider? Husband? He was just a bartender. He barely had enough credits to keep the lights on. What could he possibly give them? "You don't understand," he said quickly. "I'm not strong. I'm not rich. I'm just ordinary." The second daughter leaned closer, her eyes burning. "Humans always say that, ordinary, weak. But you survived in the outer rings, did you not? You built a place here where even smugglers bow their heads. That is not weakness." John blinked. He hadn't thought about it that way. Sure, life on the trade station was tough, but he never saw himself as powerful, just stubborn enough not to quit. The youngest daughter touched the counter with her silver fingers, tracing the wood grain as if it fascinated her. "Maybe ordinary is exactly what we need. Alien men boast, they fight, they destroy. But you listen. You hesitate. You think before acting. That is rare. That is valuable." Her words unsettled him, but also warmed something inside. For once, someone saw his caution, his carefulness, as strength instead of weakness. Still, the situation was too unreal. "You can't just call me husband," John said finally. "That's not how it works. Humans don't marry by selling a drink." The eldest's eyes hardened. "Then learn how it works here. The bond is done. Whether you accept it with pride or stumble in fear, it will remain." Before John could answer, the bar door slid open again. This time, it wasn't just them. Behind the daughters, several alien men stood in the shadows watching. Their faces were cold, their eyes full of disdain. One of them spat on the floor and hissed, "So this is the human? Pathetic." The stepmother must be desperate. The daughters stiffened, anger flashing in their silver eyes. The second daughter snapped, "Silence, he is ours. Speak against him and you speak against our house." The men laughed cruelly but did not step closer. Instead, they melted back into the corridor, leaving behind only the echo of their mockery. John's hands shook. "Who were they?" The eldest daughter's voice was sharp. "Rivals, they do not accept you. They will test you. They may try to break you. That is why we came, to stand beside you." The weight of her words pressed heavy on John's chest. Rivals, tests? He hadn't asked for any of this. But whether he liked it or not, he was caught in it now. The youngest daughter smiled again, softer this time. "You see, husband? Already you are in the middle of our world. Do not run, stay, and you might survive it." John sat down heavily on a stool, rubbing his temples. Everything felt like a dream. A bad dream, but one he couldn't wake from. Yet when he looked at their faces, stern, fierce, gentle, he realized they weren't going away. The bond had already started. And tomorrow, it would only grow deeper. John didn't sleep that night. He tossed and turned on his narrow bed, staring at the metal ceiling of his tiny apartment. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw silver skin, glowing eyes, and the word that echoed like thunder: husband. By morning, his nerves were raw. He dragged himself back to the bar, but before he could even switch on the lights, the door slid open. They were waiting for him. The three daughters stepped inside as if they owned the place. Behind them, the room seemed brighter, as though the air itself bent to their presence. The eldest daughter carried herself like a general. The second looked ready for a fight. The youngest smiled with innocent curiosity. John raised his hands helplessly. Look, I still think this is a mistake. I didn't agree to any bond. I just sold a bottle. The eldest cut him off. You still don't understand, human. Our kind does not see trade the way yours does. For us, the act of giving and taking is life itself. To sell whiskey may seem ordinary to you, but to us it was an ancient ritual. A choice, a vow. John's heart sank. A vow? I didn't make any vow. The second daughter stepped forward sharply. Ignorance does not erase it. You accepted her coins. You placed the bottle in her hands. That is enough. The bond is sealed. John shook his head. That's crazy. Humans don't marry with drinks. We sign papers, we talk first. The youngest giggled softly, tilting her head. So simple. So fragile. But your ways are not ours. You are in our world now. The eldest sat down at a table, her movements deliberate, as if preparing to lecture a child. Listen, John. In our culture, a stepmother is more than a parent. She is the guardian of her daughters, the head of her bloodline. When she binds herself to a man, she extends that bond to her daughters. The man becomes protector of the house, and in return, the house becomes his. That is honor. John swallowed hard. Protector? I'm not a warrior. I can't fight your battles. The second daughter's eyes blazed. Then learn, or die trying. That is the way. The words struck him like ice. He tried to argue, but the eldest raised a hand for silence. You fear because you do not know. So I will tell you what this bond means. She leaned forward, her voice low, each word heavy. First, loyalty. You may not betray us. If you turn your back, the bond itself will punish you. Second, defense. Our rivals will come. They already watch you. If you fall, we fall with you. Third, respect. You are not above us and we are not above you. We walk together as family. John's mouth went dry. And what if I refuse? The eldest's eyes grew colder. Then you insult the stepmother. An insult to her is an insult to the entire clan. And Elvari clans do not forgive insults. The bar felt smaller, the air heavier. John rubbed his temples, trying to think. He had come to this station for a quiet life, to escape trouble, not to invite death to his door. And yet here he was, bound by rules he had never heard of, trapped in a promise he never meant to make. The youngest daughter broke the silence, her voice gentle. Don't look so sad, husband. It is not all chains and fear. There is warmth too. Our bond means you will never be alone again. We stand with you. Her words caught him off guard. For a moment, something inside him stirred, something he hadn't felt in years. Belonging. But he pushed it down quickly. John stood, slamming his hands on the counter. I didn't ask for this. I just wanted to sell drinks and mind my own business. I'm not your protector, I'm not your... The second daughter was suddenly at his side, her hand gripping his wrist with surprising strength. Her silver eyes burned inches from his face. Stop lying to yourself. You survived here longer than many. You fight every day just by living in this place. You are stronger than you admit. That is why she chose you. John froze. Her grip was firm but not cruel. Slowly she released him. The eldest rose again, her cloak brushing the floor. You may resist now, human. But the bond is older than either of us. You cannot run from it. You can only decide how you will carry it. The room grew quiet. John felt trapped between fear and strange curiosity. He didn't want this life, but a part of him wanted to know more. Who was the stepmother who thought him worthy? Why did she bind him? Finally, John sighed and sat down, his voice tired. Then tell me everything. If I'm stuck in this, I at least deserve to know who I'm dealing with. The eldest's lips curved into the faintest smile. At last, wisdom, very well. Tomorrow we take you to her. Then you will understand what it means to be bound to the house of Elvari. The youngest clapped her hands softly, delighted. Good. You will meet her, and then you will see that it is not a curse but a gift. But John wasn't convinced. He could only feel the weight of chains he could not see, dragging him toward a future he never wanted. And somewhere deep inside, fear whispered, "What if they're right? What if there's no escape?" The next morning, John opened his eyes to the sound of knocking on his door. It wasn't gentle. It was sharp like the sound of metal on metal. For a moment, he thought about pretending to be asleep, but the knocking grew louder. He sighed, dragged himself up, and pressed the door panel. The door slid open, and there they were. 3 daughters of the Elvari stepmother. The eldest stood tall and calm, the second looked impatient, and the youngest had that same playful smile. "You are ready," the eldest said. It wasn't a question. It was an order. John rubbed his face. "Ready for what?" The second daughter's eyes flashed. "For the trials. You say you do not belong to us. You say you are not strong. Then prove it. We will test you." John froze. "Test me? What kind of test?" The youngest giggled. 3 tests, 1 for each of us. If you fail, you show you are unworthy. If you succeed, you cannot deny the bond." Before he could argue, the eldest stepped aside, revealing 3 objects carried by station workers behind her. A heavy iron rod, a sealed box, and a bowl of glowing liquid. John stared. "This looks like trouble." The eldest daughter nodded toward the iron rod. "My trial is strength, not of arms but of will. Hold this rod no matter how heavy it feels until I tell you to release." John frowned. The rod didn't look that bad. He picked it up with both hands and almost dropped it instantly. It was far heavier than it looked, pulling his arms down like it was made of solid stone. His knees trembled, his breath quickened, and sweat formed on his brow. The eldest simply folded her arms. "Do not let go. If you drop it, you fail." Minutes felt like hours. His muscles screamed, his back burned, and every instinct told him to give up. But John gritted his teeth. He remembered long nights working 2 jobs on Earth, pushing himself even when he wanted to collapse. He held on. Finally, the eldest nodded. "Enough." John let the rod crash to the ground, gasping for breath. She gave him a small approving nod. "You endure. That is enough." Before he could recover, the second daughter pointed to the sealed box. Her voice was sharp. "My trial is truth. Inside this box lies a secret, something that will tempt you to lie. Open it, but when I ask you what you saw, speak only truth. If you lie even to protect yourself, you fail." John hesitated but lifted the lid. Inside, to his shock, was a pile of golden credit chips, more money than he had ever seen in his life. His mouth went dry. The second daughter's eyes burned into him. "What do you see?" John's mind raced. He could lie. He could say nothing and keep the credits. But deep inside, he knew she would know. They always seemed to know. So with effort, he swallowed and said, "Gold. Credits. More than I could earn in a lifetime." The second daughter studied him for a long, tense moment. Then she closed the box with a snap. "Good, you are honest, even when tempted." "That is rare," John breathed out in relief. But then the youngest daughter skipped forward, her playful smile turning serious. She pointed to the bowl of glowing liquid. "My trial is kindness. Touch the bowl and it will show your heart. If your kindness is false, it will burn you. If it is true, it will accept you." John hesitated. The liquid pulsed like fire and ice mixed together. Slowly, he reached out his hand. The moment his fingers touched the surface, it glowed brighter. His heart raced, expecting pain. But instead of burning, the glow wrapped around his hand like warmth, like sunlight on a cold day. The youngest laughed with delight. "See, you are not cruel. You care. That is enough for me." John pulled his hand back, staring at the faint shimmer that still clung to his skin. His chest felt heavy, not from fear, but from something else, something he hadn't felt in a long time. A sense of belonging. The 3 daughters stood together, watching him. The eldest spoke first. "You have endured." The second added, "You have spoken truth." The youngest finished, "And you have shown kindness." John shook his head. "I didn't ask for this. I didn't want to be tested." The eldest's gaze softened slightly. "Yet you passed. That means something, human. Whether you admit it or not, you are already part of us." John leaned against the counter, exhausted. He had wanted to prove them wrong, to show that he wasn't fit for their strange bond. Instead, he had proven the opposite. The second daughter smirked. "You cannot run anymore. You belong." The youngest tilted her head, smiling warmly. "And maybe, We belong to you. John didn't know what to say. His world had turned upside down in only 2 days. First a bottle of whiskey, now trials of strength, truth, and kindness. He wasn't sure what tomorrow would bring, but he knew one thing. He couldn't call this just a mistake anymore. Something bigger was pulling him in, and whether he liked it or not, he was already part of it. For 3 days, John could not find peace. Every corner of the station whispered about him. Wherever he walked, people stared, some with envy, some with fear. The human with the Elvari stepmother, they murmured. The one her daughters call husband. John tried to ignore it, but deep down he knew his life was no longer his own. The trials had changed everything. He had passed them all, strength, truth, kindness. He had proven himself in their eyes, but he still didn't understand why. On the 4th night, the daughters came again. This time they didn't come to test him. They came to take him. The eldest spoke firmly. It is time. You will meet her. John's stomach tightened. Meet who? Our mother, the eldest answered. The one who chose you. The one who sealed the bond. John tried to argue, but the second daughter's glare silenced him. The youngest only smiled, almost excited, as if she were introducing him to a secret she had kept too long. They led him through the dark halls of the station, past locked doors and hidden passageways he had never noticed before. Finally, they stopped at a massive door carved with silver symbols that glowed faintly in the dark. The eldest touched her hand to the markings, and the door slid open. Inside was a chamber unlike anything John had seen. The walls shimmered with flowing light, as if stars themselves were trapped inside the stone. At the center stood a tall chair carved from crystal, and in that chair sat the stepmother. She was exactly as John remembered from the bar, silver skin, glowing eyes, long cloak that seemed to ripple like water. But here in her own domain she was even more powerful. The air bent around her. Her presence pressed against John's chest, heavy and unshakable. She raised her head slowly and her eyes locked on him. So, the human arrives. John swallowed hard. Why me? Why did you choose me? The stepmother rose, her movement smooth and deliberate. Because you are not like the others. Her voice filled the chamber, calm yet commanding. I have seen alien males, loud, proud, cruel. They fight for power but never for family. They take but do not give. They destroy what they should protect. My daughters deserve more. My house deserves more. And you, human, you give without realizing it. You protect without asking for reward. That is why I chose you. John shook his head, confused. But I'm just a bartender. I'm not special. I'm not strong like you think. The stepmother stepped closer, her eyes sharp. Strength is not only in the arm. Strength is in the heart. When you sold me that whiskey, you did not see power. You did not see profit. You only saw a customer. You treated me with fairness, with respect. That was your test, and you passed before you even knew it. John blinked. That's it? A bottle of whiskey? Her lips curved slightly, not a smile, but something close. It was never just whiskey. In our culture, that act is sacred. To give drink is to give trust. To accept drink is to accept bond. You gave, I accepted. Now you are bound to us. John's chest tightened. You tricked me. The stepmother's gaze turned cold. No, I revealed you. A trick shows falsehood. A bond shows truth. You may run from it, deny it, curse it, but it will not break. You are part of us now. The second daughter stepped forward, her voice sharp. Mother, he doubts still. He thinks himself weak. The stepmother turned her eyes back to John. Then hear this, human. The bond was not only for my daughter's sake. It was also for you, John frowned. For me? She nodded slowly. You live alone. You hide behind a bar, behind bottles and smoke. You pretend to want peace, but truly you are afraid of connection, afraid to belong. I saw it in your eyes that night. You needed family as much as they needed a protector. The words cut deep. John wanted to deny them, but he couldn't. It was true. For years he had lived in shadows, avoiding people, avoiding ties. And yet here this alien woman saw through him in a single glance. The youngest daughter's voice was soft, almost tender. That's why we call you husband. Not because you bought whiskey. Because you were chosen for us and for yourself. John felt his throat tighten. And what if I still refuse? The stepmother's expression hardened. Refusal is insult. Insult is war. You would not survive, and neither would your bar. But accept, and you will gain more than you ever dreamed. A family, a place, a name that others fear to cross. The chamber fell silent. John's mind spun. torn between fear and something else, something he didn't want to admit. A longing. Finally, he whispered. So this was your plan all along, to bind me, to give me your daughters. The stepmother's eyes glowed brighter. Yes, because only a human could do what our men cannot. Only you could be husband to my house. Only you could keep them safe. John's heart pounded. He didn't know if he was walking into destiny or a trap. But one thing was certain, there was no going back. The bond was real. And the stepmother's plan had only just begun. The chamber still echoed with the stepmother's words. John stood frozen, his heart racing, his mind torn apart. He wanted to shout, to walk away, to break free, but something deep inside refused. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was curiosity. Or maybe it was something else he had buried for too long. The stepmother's glowing eyes softened for the first time. Do not think this is prison, human. You may not have chosen the bond, but the bond has chosen you, and now you must choose how to carry it. The eldest daughter stepped forward, her voice firm. We accept you already. We stood with you in trials. We saw your endurance. The second daughter's eyes burned with fire. We do not need perfection. We need truth. You gave that when you could have lied. The youngest smiled gently, almost shy. And you gave kindness even when the world gave you none. That is why we call you husband. John looked at them. 3 silver-skinned daughters, each different yet united, each looking at him not as a stranger but as something more. And for the first time, he didn't just see chains. He saw a door half open, waiting for him to step through. Still doubt clung to him. What if I fail? What if I can't protect you? The stepmother's cloak swayed as she walked closer. She stopped just inches from him, her presence heavy but not crushing. Then you will fail with us. That is family. That is bond. Alone you will fall, but together we rise. Her words struck something inside John. Memories flashed. Nights on earth where he sat alone, drinking to silence, pretending he didn't need anyone. He had always told himself he was better that way. But now, standing before them, he realized how empty that life had been. The eldest reached out her hand. Walk with us. The second clenched her fist. Fight with us. The youngest whispered, live with us. John's throat tightened. Slowly, almost without realizing, he nodded. Then, I'll try. I'll stay. I'll be yours. The 3 daughters exchanged a look, a silent conversation only sisters could share, and then one by one they bowed their heads. The eldest spoke softly but with pride. Then it is done. You are husband of the house of Elvari. The chamber lights flared as if the walls themselves celebrated the decision. John felt something wash over him, like a weight pressing into his skin and then sinking deeper into his bones. It wasn't pain but a strange warmth, a silent seal. The bond had accepted him. The stepmother lifted her hand. From this day forward, you are no longer John the bartender. You are John of Elvari, protector, husband, part of us. Her voice rang like a command across the chamber. Somewhere deep inside, John felt the truth of it. No matter how much he had resisted, no matter how accidental it had begun, he was no longer alone. When they left the chamber, the station seemed different. People looked at him not with pity now, but with respect and a little fear. Whispers followed, but the tone had changed. That's him, the human who carries the bond, the one chosen by the stepmother. Back at the bar, John looked at the counter where it all started. That single bottle of whiskey still haunted his memory, a simple trade that had changed everything. The youngest daughter leaned against the counter, grinning. Strange, isn't it? 1 drink and now 3 wives. John coughed, nearly choking. Wives, I thought. The second daughter interrupted, smirking. What did you think? Husband is not just a word. You are ours now, and we are yours. The eldest gave a small, approving nod. Do not fear. We do not rush. A bond grows in time. But know this, you are no longer 1, you are 4. And the galaxy will remember it. John sat heavily on a stool, running a hand through his hair. He wanted to laugh, to cry, to drink again. But instead he looked at them, at the strength in the eldest's eyes, the fire in the second's, the warmth in the youngest's, and something settled inside him. For the first time in years he felt complete. He raised a glass not to himself but to them. Then let's see where this bond takes us. The 3 daughters lifted their own glasses, silver eyes glowing. Together they drank, not as strangers, not as enemies, but as something new, And somewhere in the shadows of the station, rivals watched, muttering in anger. But for now, John didn't care. He had found something stronger than fear, something he thought he would never have again. Family. A bottle of whiskey had started it. A bond had sealed it. And now, against all odds, John was no longer just a man running from life. He was husband of 3.